How's everybody doing today? As you know, we're probably figured out by now, we're park rangers. We work out of Bullards Beach. We take care of the entire area here. We take care of our park, which is Bullards Beach. We have the lighthouse. We cover about 1,400 acres on that area there. We also cover Beach Loop Road, which has 5 small satellite parks, and all the way out into Powers. You've got several small parks out in there with river access that we also take care of. So, how many of you guys know what a park ranger does? Anybody have an idea? What? We drive around. That's what everybody thinks we do. Where we're out hugging animals or getting kittens out of trees, things like that. Actually, we have quite a project that we do every day. We have a campground that can hold up to 500 people. So during the summer, when we are full up, we look anywhere between 300 to 500 people a day that we deal with. So we have to deal with making sure that everything works. We have our own water treatment. We have our own sewer treatment facilities. We also deal with any emergencies immediately that happen. So if somebody needs an ambulance, we're the first person there. We see if, what they need, what kind of law enforcement needs to be taken. Basically, we do it all. And our campground there at Bullards Beach is pretty much a self-contained city. The only thing we don't do is manufacture our own electricity there. So we've got a sewer plant, which we have to maintain. We have a water plant, which we have to maintain. And then every day we go around and check people in and out. We'll go out and clean up our horse camp. We got a lot of things that we do there. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, so we do get to do a lot of driving around, but like Joe was saying, we do have a lot of varied opportunities. So one day you might be running the campground, next day you might be cutting down some trees. We have a beach ranger that goes out, takes care of all the beaches, makes sure that people aren't driving, where they're not supposed to in the snowy plover areas. If you've heard about the little birds that like to hide in the sand, easy to step on. They had to go out and bury a couple of seals in the sand the other day, so you do get to see some wildlife. You do have turkeys in the park. You do have a lot of porcupines and that sort of stuff. So if you like being outside, you definitely do get a chance to walk around outside a lot. You do get to drive a little bit, but then you do get to go out to all the other parks and check those out. Make sure people aren't vandalizing them, doing donuts out in the grass, tearing the parks up. So trying to maintain the campground and the parks so that everybody can go out there and enjoy them.
Sure. One of our primary things is rule enforcement. So there's a lot of rules that make the park safe for visitors, keep the park from getting damaged. A lot of people just think they can come into the state parks and start cutting down trees and taking firewood or digging holes. We just had a situation where somebody came in and they did a treasure hunt. And it sounded really harmless at first, except for they dug into a cultural sensitive area where tribes had lived over 1,000 years ago. And so they had dug up some archaeology out there. And that's one of the things that we're out there trying to protect is the cultural resources. So we have a lot of tribal Native American things that took place in the park. We do a lot of interpretation, like people come in and they'll say, hey, so tell me about what went on here, maybe our lighthouse or some of the ancestral things that had gone on, like some of the tribes that had lived there in the past. And those are all things that we do for interpretation on that. A lot of people are interested in coming to work at state parks because it is a state job, and they want to know, how do I get into this? And it's actually pretty simple. We have a program where when we hire in as these assistant park rangers, and they're on a temporary basis, usually during the summer. And the qualifications for it, there's quite a few qualifications, but it doesn't require college necessarily. If you have some skills in maybe construction, or you maybe volunteered somewhere as a cashier or worked as a cashier and you've worked with the public, those are the things that can get you a step in the door with us. And then once you've got a job, they'll train you to do a lot of other things. So some of the things that we have for our seasonal park employees are course, provide great customer service because we do have, like I said, 500 people in the park during a summer day. Sometimes you'll be taking reservations, people will come up and they'll want to camp there, they don't have a reservation, so you'll be the first person they talk to and they'll have questions to ask you. And you can sell them a reservation, so there's opportunities there. Custodial duties, a lot of cleaning that needs to be done. People make messes, we clean up after them. We do a lot of landscape maintenance. We've got 1,400 acres of lawn, and it gets mowed quite frequently. We also
Yeah, if you like mowing, you do get a lot of opportunity to drive around in a little zero-turn mower and do a lot of mowing during the summer, up until fire restrictions come in, and then not so much.
Yeah, so that's another thing that we do is we also keep an eye out for fires. We've worked several times with forestry departments and other firefighting groups as fires broken out in our park or near our park to try to prevent those. We also do a lot of trail maintenance, which is fun because you get to get out. You don't have a lot of pressure of sitting in an office. You're not stuck behind a desk. You're actually out walking in the woods. You'll find areas that need to be rebuilt, or I don't know if you guys have walked out like South Slough Estuary. They've got all the boardwalks out there. We do a lot of work on those type of things. We'll also, like I said, we'll go around and we'll look for possible violations. Like today, before we came here, we've got somebody that's running around putting stickers on signs in our park. Just kind of a small like vandalism type thing. So we look around and we remove those stickers and we talk to people about it and try to encourage them to not vandalize the parks. We'll provide information also to visitors about the wildlife. Oftentimes there's a lot of wildlife to be viewed out there. But let's talk about the minimum qualifications for getting a job at a state park, because I mean, after school, you guys are going to want to move along and get jobs. So the basic requirements is 6 months of experience, paid or unpaid, performing public contact or customer service duties. So something like a salesperson or a receptionist, answering phones. But if you haven't done those kind of things, we're also looking for people that have construction skills, maybe in landscaping, maybe lawn mowing, those type of things. And those are all things that you would want to put down on your application and your resume. The other thing that if you do have 6 months of college, that's also an easy way. You don't need to have any other experience, but it does take either or. So you don't have to be a college graduate in order to become a park ranger. It does help, but everybody starts out pretty much as a park ranger assistant, and it is a seasonal job. I'll give you a good taste of what we do there. What did you do before you became a park ranger, Josh?
So yeah, just kind of go over what we did prior to becoming a park ranger, because a lot of us that are park rangers didn't start out as a park ranger. So after high school, I joined the Navy. So I was in the Navy for 27 years. Just retired in 2020, so just in time for COVID to hit, not have to work. So ended up applying with the state parks, got a job as a park ranger assistant working at Cape Blanco last year. And then I applied and got a position here at Bullards Beach as a seasonal park ranger one. And then I lucked out and I was able to apply for the permanent position. So I just recently got a permanent position out at Bullards Beach. So what I did in the Navy is I worked in medical, so I worked in a clinic, I worked in pediatrics, but kind of a nice change coming back out and being a park ranger. So instead of sitting in an office, I get to be outside all the time. You still have to deal with public, so you still have to, be nice to everybody, try to help solve their problems. So even when you have two campers, we had one this summer that they were upset that they thought somebody called and complained about them for being too loud one night. So then they started talking to each other in an inappropriate manner and kind of starting to try and get in a little bit of a fight. So did have to kind of diffuse that situation of definitely, trying to keep campers happy and letting everybody be able to enjoy their stay at the park, even though they're right next to each other and they weren't getting along. So sometimes we do have to do that and give them the options of like, hey, get along in the parks, or we'll probably have to ask both of you to leave. So that comes into the enforcement side. So that's kind of where I came from. So I came from doing medical stuff, and then towards the end of my Navy career, I was doing security, force protection. So I got to drive a little patrol boat around the world and chase down fishermen and tell them to stay away from bigger ships. So that's where my background is. I had some security, force protection. That comes into, you know, the rule enforcement at the park. So thankfully, ours is mostly just talking to people, making sure that they all get along and that everybody has a good time. And then did a little bit of construction work when I was in high school, so that's kind of how I came into the parks. And then Joe's a little bit different on how he came in.
I am completely different. I've had a lot of jobs over my time. I worked for internet companies, a salesperson, so there's my customer service thing. Worked at hardware stores. 7 years before I worked at state parks, I worked at sawmills. So I've done a lot of those type of jobs, food manufacturing, all those type of things there. Not so much military or professional like he was, but what I'm trying to get at here is it's available to everybody, and they're not really looking at everything that you've done in the past. What they're really looking for is people that are willing to work, willing to show up, willing to put in the time, that want to be able to interact with something that's really a great system. Oregon State Parks is pretty much the #1 state park system in the United States. We get so many visitors that come in and say, your parks are so clean and so organized, and you guys are on the ball with it. And that is because we have great management, and there's a ton of opportunities. So maybe you guys don't
I'm
see.
sorry, we're gonna all move to the shop, so please stand up, walk quietly to the shop. You can come with us.
All right.
And you're back on.
All right. So basically, that's where we come from. It takes people from all walks of life. The experience is easy to get. The other way you can get experience is you can volunteer at state parks, and there are programs available after college or after high school. You can contact the state parks to see if they have any volunteer positions, maybe in their gift shops and things like that. But it's a foot in the door, and there's been a lot of people that have moved high up in the organization that started as volunteers just so they could get their foot in the door. And so if you guys are interested in something like state parks, that is definitely the way to do it. I understand you guys, looks like you guys do some kind of construction class here. So, I mean, that's an excellent foot in the door right there, because all of us have built things for the state parks, whether it be some of these big wood trash cans that you see that hold all the different recycling bins, to actually re-roofing the facilities or adding additions on and things like that. So if you guys have learned any skills here, this as well may be a good foot in the door for you guys. But I would recommend visiting a state park, talking to one of the rangers, maybe making an appointment to talk to a manager, and see, you know, what are the needs for volunteers. Sure, you don't get paid for it, but it is, like I said, it's a great foot in the door, and it looks good